famous, so it's an exciting job. And obviously we have Pluto fans up here in the front. You know, didn't react at all. So. Well, probably the best way to start is just to tell you a little bit about myself and open it up for questions, because that always leads to great stories and stuff like that. So any and all things you ever wanted to know about Goofy and Pluto and any other characters and voice actors behind the scenes, that kind of stuff, just feel free to ask, and be glad to answer anything that you'd like. Tell you a little bit about myself, and first of all, the most important thing is, how did I get this wacky job? Because it's not a normal thing. You don't go to, get Goofy 101 in college. It's just not done. So I grew up in a little town in south central Kansas, and there it's, we have wheat and tornadoes. That's all we have. And little town of 7,000, and I was always a movie nut ever since I was little. We had one theater in the town, and every Saturday I'd go and they'd show double features and cartoons and the Three Stooges and all sorts of stuff on Saturday. So we would go down there and just spend our whole day. And it just captured my imagination. And I never thought about really doing this for a living at that time. I just enjoyed it. And I didn't know, it seemed like a million miles away from little town in Kansas to be in Hollywood and to do cartoons or animation, even though I loved it. And I would practice voices around, the house, and we'd, like on Saturday morning, I'd watch all the cartoon shows, and usually would sound like, "Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat."
"Yes, Inspector, nothing to write in the bounties. Where's little Nell?"
"Well, see, dog, Captain Crunch cereal stays crunchy." And then my parents would turn the set on, so it was like that. And I'd run around and I'd do these voices. My parents didn't know what to think of me, so I would go up and I'd do like, whoever. In those days, we'd have like, I'd go up with George Burns for dinner, "Mom, I need to shut off," and then "Our Billy's weird," My mom didn't know what to think of me, and my dad thought something's really wrong with that. And I never thought that it would be anything other than just fun. And as we got older and I learned to drive, my friends would put me up to doing voices. We'd drive through places like, McDonald's or something, and they'd say, do a weird voice. And I'd like a Whopper with cheese, and Arnold the Pig would like a Coca-Cola. And they would laugh. But I never knew it was going to be a career. And I went to college and got a degree in journalism. So I kicked around in radio for a number of years, creating, characters. And, at those radio stations, they were little podunk stations in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas. And, they didn't care what I did as long as people listened, and I played records once in a while. So I would invent characters and use some of those, the voices, like there was a Wolfman Jack, who was a big DJ at the time, and
"Yeah, the boy's kind of like this. I do rock and roll with it. The Wolfman Jack."
I didn't know that there were like copyrights on people's voices and stuff. So I just would do characters. And then in 1982 in Dallas, I went to a comedy club, and comedy was in the heyday right there. So I decided I'd give it a shot. So the next week I wrote a little comedy routine, went up, and got a pretty good response. And, it was scary, but I did get some applause and stuff. And the host of that comedy club was a guy who went on to great fame named Bill Engvall, who was, if you've seen the Blue Collar Comedy Tour with Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy and Bill, he hit it big in Hollywood, but he was the house comic practicing, his stuff. And he said, "Hey, you ought to give this a shot. I think you got something." So I went back and back, week after week, and before long I was starting to do clubs around Texas, and I did that from 1982 through 1986, and then decided to move to California to give it a shot. And as luck would have it, after moving to California, I was able to get an agent, and then about 4 months after that, my agent said, "Do you do any of the Disney characters?" And I said, "Well, I can most people can kind of do a Mickey Mouse. If you can do that falsetto, gosh, you kind of get in the ballpark of that." I couldn't do Donald because you got to do that cheek thing, and I could make the noise. That's all I could do. But gosh, Goofy just kind of came easy to me. And out of about 1,200 people that tried out, they picked me. And then in January of 1987, I got to do my first job. And you know, I'm not an employee of Disney, never have been. We're all freelance actors. We're like the plumber. We come in and do a job and go home, and they pay us. And, you know, I didn't know if it was 1 time, 2 times, whatever. And they invited me to come back and do it again, and then again, and again, and again. And after 30 years for Disney, I've probably done about 3,500 different jobs. So they're still hiring me. I'm still barking for a living, and it's a wacky and weird job. So that's kind of in a nutshell of how I got here today. And I'd love to open it up for any questions that anyone has about show business in general. Yeah. How many what? Oh gosh, how many voices do I have? I started off as an impressionist, so probably a couple of hundred of different voices that I did. I used to do a lot of like actors, and those days a lot of westerns were on TV. And well, I do John Wayne and yep, them wagons in a circle, and we're going good. We better get out there. We're going to the cooking. A lot of character voices and stuff like that. And I'm Jimmy Stewart. Oh, it's one of my favorite actors. And so I would just kind of pick up these characters and add it to the repertoire. So I've done a couple of hundred over the years, probably. Another question, please. Yes, back there.
Is the process of like voice acting for like animated movies different than like anything for like Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah, is the question was, is the procedure for recording different on movies, Kingdom Hearts, or any video games or television series? They're all different, and they've changed over the years. Back when I started, it was an ensemble recording. We would be all in the same room. Like first series that I did was one called Goof Troop, and we were all.
Yes.
I was so scared when I did that because that was my first series, and I'd go in, and we had a cast to die for. If you follow voice actors, we had, you know, Rob Paulson, who's sitting next to me up on our signing tables. I started with him in our first series. Dana Hill played Max. We had Jim Cummings, who played, of course, Pete. We had April Winchell, who played Peg. We had Nancy Cartwright, who went on to do something called The Simpsons. And she played Pete's daughter, Pistol. And then we had Frank Welker, who can do everything else, And it was intimidating for me. And I remember going in, I said, I gotta be the title star in this thing, and all of these amazing actors. It was just, very, it was just terrifying. But everyone made me feel at home. But we did. We record in a big room with like all the actors, and we would read it like a radio play. And that series, they were writing right up to the time we recorded, so we never got a rehearsal. You just got the script, boom, page 1, they would start taping. And these guys are pretty good, so you got to kind of keep up with them and not screw up your lines too many times, or they'll think, Goofy ain't that good. And but we did that. We did about 80-some episodes of that, and everyone couldn't have been nicer or kinder. And so that's kind of the way it was in the old days. It was ensemble. After that, we mostly did ensemble, but then about the early 2000s, with the editing software getting a lot better, it was easier for them to have us record separately. In other words, I go in and let's say I'm saying, "Gosh, howdy, Mickey." If I say that 5 times, "Howdy, Mickey," "Gosh, howdy, Mickey," "Howdy there, Mickey," and they like take 5. And then Mickey would say, "Hi, Goofy. Hi, Goofy. Howdy, Goofy." And they take 3. So they take his take 3, my take 5, put them together in editing, and you got the best of both worlds. That's basically the way that we do it now. Kingdom Hearts is unique in all the things that I've ever done because it was produced first in Japan. And they have counterparts around the world for all of our characters. There's like 42 different languages that they translate stuff into. And we can do a few words in other languages, but really they need to find me. So there's a Japanese Goofy, and I'm hearing him in my headphone. And he had studied how to do the laugh and all of the accents from me. So I'm hearing that back, and I can tell he'd been working on the laugh that I had done, but it's in Japanese. And it's really weird because if you do Mickey, which is kind of a trick voice, if you get that falsetto, you can kind of just talk, and it's kind of like Mickey. But Goofy is more of a cadence character. It's got lots of ups and downs. And that means different things in different languages. And so in like Japanese, it's kind of like, "Ooh, doishimai gacho." And I'm hearing that, and I've got to try and put the English words in that amount of time. And some of the words don't translate because it's like, you know, he'll go, you know, and then I say, howdy. So, and also, you know, I'm doing Pluto in this as well. And I actually they came over from Japan for the Kingdom Hearts recordings to kind of oversee. And some of them didn't speak any English. And I remember once they gave me a direction for Pluto, and it was like, "Oh, doishimai kaichu, woof, woof, woof." And I go, "Row, row, row." Oh, that grew very good. It was so straight. It was so straight. So that's the only time we've had to do that. So you never know what the procedure is going to be when you go into the studio. It could be, you know, a lot of times it's just you get the script and do it. Other times if you have a song or something, you get to practice it a while. And it can take a lot more time depending on the project. When we did Goof Troop, we'd do a half-hour show in about 2.5, 3 hours, the whole script, 40-some pages. When I did a Goofy movie later on, I worked on that off and on for almost 2 years. And about 40 different recording sessions, because they'd do something, oh, that scene didn't work, and they would kind of like get rid of that scene, rewrite it, redo it, and over that couple of year period, they kind of melded this into the story that it became. And I'm glad they took that time, because it's the 21st anniversary of that this year, and that was also cool, because the first time I saw myself on screen, which is a whole weird thing, you know, to see yourself with an audience in a theater, was for a short we did called The Prince and the Pauper, and which was beautiful, you know, and I finally heard myself with an audience, and it was really cool to see. But the next time was a Goofy movie, and that was kind of unique because, you know, it's a father and son thing, and my son was about 5 when that came out. And it totally screwed him up, because he's like, "What, you know, and he'd go with my son Austin. Austin, are you Max's brother? And are you Goofy's son?" And he said, "I thought I was that guy's son, and I didn't think I had a brother." So it's like, it took him years to get over that.
Any other questions?
Will there be a Goofy movie too?
There was really an extremely Goofy movie where he goes off to college, and that was kind of fun because that talks about the ensemble versus solo recording. That was done totally solo, and Goofy had a girlfriend in that named Sylvia. It was B.B. Newworth, who was actually on Broadway during that time doing a play. And she did her lines in New York, I did mine in Hollywood. They put them together. I've never talked to her on the phone. I've never met her or talked to her or anything, and we did this movie together. It's kind of weird. So, yes, we did 2. Now, 3 would be an interesting idea. My own thing, maybe it's time for Max to have kids. And, you know, what goofier grandparents could you have than Goofy and whoever he married? Sylvia? I don't know. You know, we never knew about Goofy's wife. And Goof Troop, you know, people always ask me, "Who's Goofy's wife? Where did Max come from?" We don't know. My own theory that he was married to Jessica Rabbit earlier. Hey, he's Goofy. He's not stupid. You know? So, who knows?
She likes people that make her laugh.
Yeah, that would be good. I think maybe Goofy dropped his wife off at the mall and just forgot. Didn't I have a wife?
It's gotta be here in the Pikachu.
I have a two-part question. One, who's the favorite Disney voice actor or actress ever that you've ever met? And the second one is, what's your favorite Goofy short?
Oh, the new shorts, the Mickey Mouse shorts?
No, the
Oh, the how-to, yes, we did a series, or actually we did one that came out, it was a how to install your home theater, which was in theater. Well, guilty with Corey Burton doing a great narrative voice. And, but a lot of people thought that was an original until it goes the DVD, the CD, you know, and all of these kind of things. And it's a new one, but it was done in that old style. I'd love them to do more. I had heard a rumor they were going to do some more, but they can't really, they don't know how much money it brings in because it was in front of a movie and it's just some kind of political thing. But I had heard, and I don't know this to be truth, but it would have been fun, that the next one would have been how to go through airport security. Would have been a real funny one. So if you got a script, write it in, and maybe we can do some more of those things. That would have been a fun one. And what was the other part of the question? Oh my gosh, a lot of celebrities are kind of fun. Actually, probably the best one that we did a thing called Merry Christmas from Walt Disney World. It was a 3-hour radio show around Christmas, and we would always have a celebrity host that would be in the studio, and we would do it with them, you know, kind of in a real-time thing. And we had, oh gosh, everyone from James Earl Jones, we had Leslie Nielsen, you know, Jason Alexander, Whoopi Goldberg, Jim Belushi, we had, but my favorite one was the last one we did several years ago, was Dick Van Dyke. Who is just amazing. You know, it was a 4-hour session, and we were sitting, and we had chairs, because we're getting old, and here he's like 80-something, and he's standing the whole time telling us jokes, and just amazing, amazing performer, just delightful to be with. And also, you know, if you've seen Mary Poppins, you gotta think, oh, this is Bert, you know, and that was so cool. He got to play in Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. There was a DVD episode where he got to be Goofbeard the Pirate, Goofy's granddad. And so I got to sing a song with him as Pluto. And so kind of howling along, you know, that kind of thing. But what a delightful guy. He was fun. And of the classic characters, of course, we'll miss Wayne Allwine, who did Mickey for so many years. Wayne was the funniest guy I've ever met. He'd crack my son up, and he would crack us up. You only got to see maybe 5% of his talent. He was a drummer. He could play ukulele. He did that. He could sing. He was an Emmy Award-winning sound effects editor before he got into that, and very funny. I got to tell you a story. I've told this before. When we were starting to do the show Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, we did it ensemble the first season, until we had an episode called Dr. Daisy. And Dr. Daisy was when, you know, she comes in and everyone's like lining up, playing doctor kind of thing. And I had to say the line. I had to say, "Gosh, Daisy, would you blow on my boo-boo?" Scooby had hurt his knee. Well, I couldn't say the line without laughing. And you know how you just get started on something and it gets funnier and funnier. And Wayne was over there just cracking it. He's like, "Gosh, would you blow on my boo-boo after that?" And we just lost it. Lucy Taylor just was on the floor turning purple, laughing. And it was like 15 minutes to say that line. And it's like, guys, we only have the studio for a couple of hours. So after that time, we started recording separately. So that's why. But he was hilarious, and he really embodied Mickey. And he was married to Lucy Taylor, who did Minnie as well. They were not married when I first started doing this. They were both in bad marriages, fell in love with each other, got divorced and married, and were the happiest couple I've ever seen. They were Mickey and Minnie in real life.
Right here, in the front?
A little bit ahead.
Yes, that's the new movie hat on.
How does it feel going to Disney Park character itself, like a stage show?
It's kind of weird. I'm used to it now. But it was definitely, I'll sometimes critique my performance. Oh, they used that take. I thought I did a better one or something like that. What's fun, though, is to go up to the costume goofy. Gosh, I hear voice. But in nearly 30 years, not one of them has ever broken character and talked back. Sometimes they'll go backstage where they can talk. But no, oh my they'll do it all pantomime, and I love to do that. Or if I'm in a line, like at Pirates of the Caribbean, and some kid's like on his dad's, sharing asleep, and they'll just go, oh, yup, and the kid will look around. Shut up, go back to sleep. We'll all do that sometime.
We have somebody over here in a red bodysuit.
Speaking of the Goofy movie, do you potentially remember any of the songs from it?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
You lead away from modern living to shed your weary clothes. Forgot it from there on, but if I can remember where my wallet is, I'm happy. At the D23 convention last year, we got to have a Goofy movie panel, which I'm exceedingly proud of. Don Hahn, who produced Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, helped put this together. And he got Tevin Campbell, who did Powerline. And I'd never met him until that night, that panel. About a half an hour before we went on stage, I got to meet him. And so he sang Eye to Eye live. And Jason Marsden, who did Max, didn't get to sing in the was a singer named Aaron Lohr. And the first thing we did on that movie were the songs. And they didn't know Jason could sing, but he can sing fine. So we got to rectify that, because in front of about 1,200 people, we got to sing The Open Road, me and Jason, for the first time ever. And it was like being the applause and stuff was incredible. We had like a 3-minute standing ovation. It's like being one of the Beatles coming in. And it was incredible. And before that, D23, a Disney blog had like the top 10 panels to see. And we weren't even among the top 10. Afterwards, we were the #1. We were the only panel that got 100% satisfaction. We beat out the Star Wars panel. And they had George Lucas and Harrison Ford. So I'm really proud of that. That was a memorable thing.
Go back to your idea of you did the voice acting with a bunch of people in the room. Was there ever one actor who was always either a complete pain in the butt, or kept improving, or just kept throwing everything off base, or just couldn't stop laughing?
Well, Wayne could be that way, if not a pain in the butt, but he could just crack you up, and that's why they separated us. But no, voice actors, and I've been in a couple of movies and stuff. If you ever see the old movie RoboCop, I did that just about the time I got to the audition back in 1986. And doing voiceover, I think everyone's so thankful that they do this for a living, because that movie I had to record at like 2:30 in the morning. It was like 90 degrees. Peter Weller in the RoboCop outfit. They had to blow air up his sleeve after every take so he wouldn't faint from the heat. It was not comfortable, and it was very long, slow process. Now it is, you can dress however you want. You go in, you got a script, and it's howdy. And it's a wonderful, I think, so most voice actors also don't crave to be in the spotlight. It's not all me, me, me. It's about the work, it's about the fun. And so it's like a very, and I know a lot of voice actors who'll say, oh, I don't do that kind of a voice, but Bill does, or Maurice does, or whatever. And so they'll trade off jobs if they don't feel they're right. But it's a great community, a very small community, so you get to know everyone pretty well. Unfortunately, today we don't get to record that often together, so we get to see them mostly at Comic-Cons and conventions like this. And so I'm catching up with Rob and Maurice and everybody that I haven't seen in a while. And like Maurice, we're on a series now together called the 7D on Disney. And Maurice does Grumpy, and I do Doc.
And Doc's voice is kind of a high, kind of an elfish kind of voice.
But I don't get to see him when we record, so that's the breaks.
Okay, do you want to make the next one? I feel bad.
Okay, I'm up here with the mask.
How do you handle doing goofy and more serious situations? Like in a movie with a lot of dramatic stuff, I can challenge.
Yeah, that was what was cool about that, because up to that point, I had the reference of, Pinto Colvig's Goofy to kind of fall back on, doing what he did. So it was more of a copying thing. With a Goofy movie, yeah, we had to add layers to him. He had to be still goofy, but, you know, heartfelt. He had to be worried about Max becoming a criminal and stuff like that without losing the essence of what Goofy is. That was a fun challenge, and it's always a fun challenge to kind of take the character in a little new directions without losing the basis. We have the new Mickey Mouse shorts that are on, which are drawn kind of retro. Goofy's not wearing pants, he's got a tail, and it's drawn kind of in a retro style. If you haven't seen those, they're all on YouTube, and I'm very proud I won an Annie Award last year for the Goofy's Grandma episode.